Hello everyone, my name is Arthur Ross, I play the viola, and this is episode 15 of the Arthur Ross video podcast. Welcome. Today we're working on Vieuxtemps' Capriccio again. I worked on it in episode 14, but I want to do some new material for you today. The purpose of this podcast is opening the door to the practice room. This is not a masterclass. Here I show you the nitty-gritty, how the sausage is actually made, how an artist performer actually creates his performance. So let's get started. I want to work on the first few phrases of the Capriccio, and we'll see how far we go. First phrase. What I'm trying to do, I'm playing through the phrase in a deconstructed kind of form, just to get an impression of where I'm at, what I'm hearing, and what I might want to hear. Deconstructed means I am abbreviating all of the technical musical things, or abbreviating is not the right word. I am downplaying or downgrading all of the minutia and details of how I'd want to play it in a real performance to focus on one or two elements. I'm focusing on flow, so moving through the phrase, and observing, always observing. Observing what's happening here, observing the body, observing the musical phrase or the journey, the sounds that's taking me on. Bass line, if you remember from episode 14. I'm elongating the multiple stops, those rolled chords across the strings, intonation purposes, um, getting a sense of the sound, and again, deconstructing, focusing on flow. By the way, you may notice that at the end, I am adding the beginning of the next phrase. Um, as you work phrases, by the way, a phrase is a musical sentence. It has a subject, and I think, what is the word, predicate? I think predicate is the right word. It's been a while since I've studied grammar. But it has the first part of a sentence and a second part of a sentence with a period at the end. A musical phrase is the sound version of that. You tell mainly instinctually. Over time, as you've done this a while, you kind of get a sense of how a phrase starts and how a phrase ends. You can also tell through analysis and a combination of other things. Actually, going back and forth on what these phrases are, and I'll probably talk about that in more detail later as we go through more of it. All right, one more time with this phrase one. So impressions and things to work on moving forward, reconstructing those rolled chords so they are more integrated and sort of they don't interrupt the phrase. There's some shifting things, there's obviously some intonation things that sort of interrupt the flow. Okay, phrase two. You'll recognize the beginning of this because I played it at the end for some of these other examples. Phrase two. I'm thinking through how the second phrase joins with and interacts with the phrase which came before it. There's another set of musical terms called antecedent and consequent phrases. Antecedent and consequent phrases, again, technical musical terms, which essentially mean two sentences or perhaps two clauses that are related to one another. One sort of sets up the pitch, the other hits it, if you're into baseball. The antecedent is the first part, and the consequence is the thing that happens as a result, musically, of what came before it. So this second phrase, this second clause, this consequent phrase answers what was given to it by the first phrase. So I'm thinking through what would that mean in terms of how it's performed. And when I say how it's performed, I'm thinking of all of the various components to creating the sound. Volume, tone quality, the up and down ebb and flow of the line as you go from note to note, and how it meanders. Lots of choices. Okay. Phrase 3, you'll recognize. It's essentially the same thing as phrase 1, with the little tag is different, which I didn't actually play correctly this past time. The first tag, by the way, leads to that. The second tag they're quite similar, but they are slightly different and leads to different things. All right. So since phrase 3 is pretty much like phrase 1, we'll just move on to phrase 4. Phrase 4 again. Again, deconstructed for flow. Remember that antecedent consequent concept I was telling you about? Phrase 3 and 4 are those things. Phrase 3 is the antecedent. Phrase 4 is the consequence. The phrase 4 is the result musically of phrase 3 in the same way as phrase 2 was the result musically of phrase 1. it's also it also makes sense that phrases 1 and 3 are the same. That's kind of how you know that, kind of how I've determined that those where those phrase divisions have occurred. The Vieuxtemps gave us a hint. Phrase 4 again. By the way, and as I was working on this yesterday, I also noticed as I was seeking bass line, about to play phrase 4 and some of the other phrases as well, I noticed that my mind would go blank. When you're playing when you're playing from memory, when you're playing by heart, because I'm not using the sheet music, whenever I'm doing solo things, I will learn the repertoire with the intent of playing it from memory. So I don't actually practice with the music. The music's actually over there for just a little aesthetics for the video. But I don't actually, I study the music away from the viola. And then when I come to the instrument, I do my practicing without the music, so that I'm always performing with memory in mind. I'm always performing by heart. So as I'm preparing to do phrase 4, I have noticed over the past several days that my mind is blank, and it takes a bit of time to evoke the image of the music in my head to know what comes first. Even when I'm talking to you, I'm trying to think through, okay, what are the first few notes? That tag that I was telling you about, that's different from phrase 1 to phrase 3. It's only different by a couple of notes. That tag is the key to both phrase 2, how it starts, and phrase 4. So as I am going back to study it away from the viola, that's something for me to keep in mind. And there are things you can do. You can do hand copying of the music. I do that a bunch, where I will, again, away from the music, away from the sheet music, I will actually write out on manuscript paper, musical paper with the staves, the actual part from scratch. So from a blank sheet of manuscript paper, I write out the entire thing, all dynamics, all notes, all of the various bits of nomenclature, to create that image in my mind that I can then evoke when I need it. Very long explanation there, bit of a tangent. Phrase 4. With the tag from phrase 3. Baseline is starting to go away as I am thinking through various things, evoking images, thinking of sound, thinking about talking to you guys. Okay, so going through each of the phrases with the focus of flow, deconstructed, to observe what's occurring and to determine what I might want to do next. All right, so let me play you all 4 phrases, and we'll see how this goes. Evoking the image in my mind. Because it takes a little extra time, I definitely need to do some hand copying to help clarify the image. When you're trying to do anything from memory, whether memorizing vocabulary words in high school or memorizing your way, the route to a particular place you want to go, anything that you want to remember, memorizing a friend's new phone number. If you do that now we just kind of put it in our phones and forget about it. But occasionally we want to remember those things. You are evoking the image in your mind and then simply reading what you see. When you're following a route, you are evoking the image of right turn next to the barbecue shack, left turn at the big tree, huge intersection. Oh, that's where I picked up those my favorite shoes at that store. You're seeing an image or images and simply reading what you see. So it works. Memory works that way in life. It works that way in music. All right, 4 phrases. So, there you are, the first 4 phrases of the Vieuxtemps Capriccio with the very beginning of phrase 5. So, I think that's enough for today. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Arthur Ross Video Podcast, episode 15. You can view this podcast and all of my others at my website, arthurross.net. You can also go to my YouTube channel, Arthur Ross Listening Laboratories. So, again, thanks for watching. Please comment in the comment sections below. Ask questions. I give feedback. I welcome all of those things. So, thanks a lot, and I will see you next time.